So again, we're here today to talk about buying and selling a home, which is in fact your biggest asset. We totally understand that and know that. You can't make this kind of return in the stock market, so helping you to make this big decision is something that we take very seriously for you, whether it's buying, selling, or investing. I just literally had a Marine reach out to me yesterday who's down in Texas right now, and he sees the appeal to Ohio, so he wants to kind of start building his investment portfolio and then retire here someday. Because if any of you are prior military, you know we have very good benefits in Ohio that are military friendly. So again, buying, selling, or investing, that's our goal right now, is to help you accomplish all of these things. We're going to talk a little bit about learning the process, what it involves as far as learning about how to buy and sell. And I know Tim had kind of mentioned to you, but can I see a show of hands, like maybe who's interested, so we kind of know what the audience is, in learning more about buying? Okay, and then selling. So a little bit of both, and many people are in that situation. So we'll kind of touch on both, and I always feel that like it's very good to have the information. Knowledge is power. So whether you are looking to buy today, you may be looking to sell tomorrow. So we'll kind of give you an overview of both of those. That will help you.
So this is more aimed towards the buying of the home, but it deals in both ways, and we're going to talk about buyers first, sellers second. But as you're buying, one of the things is what the current market is that we're in. And we are in a very heavy seller's market, and probably will stay that way in Central Ohio for the foreseeable future. We have, as of yesterday, 2,952 houses on the market, active, ready to sell. We need, for the size of Greater Columbus area, we need 15,000 to be a balanced market. So we only have about 1/5 of what we need to be a balanced market. So really the market right now is very much to the seller's advantage. And we're seeing pricing, depending on the area that it's in, depending on the kind of the house, but we are seeing pricing go at list price or above. So it is a lot tougher on buyers at this point than it is on sellers. From the seller standpoint, it's like this, yes. You're just in a great mood, it's going to be super. Buyers can be extremely competitive depending on the area. Housing prices, on the other hand, are really tough. A lot of what's driving that in the current market too are the big projects that we have going on around town. So we've got, everyone knows about Intel, and they're just dumping a ton of money into the area. And that's going to drive growth here probably for the next 20 years. There's also a new lithium battery plant that's going in south of town. If it wasn't for Intel, this would be big news. So there's a lot of growth and a lot of money coming into that. And even in the short north area around the North Market, there's a big high-rise going in and kind of an entertainment center. Again, that's a $500 million project. So there's a lot of money coming into Central Ohio. Everything that we've read demographically is we're going to see Central Ohio probably double again in population by 2050. So housing prices are going to be relatively stable. There's always ups and downs in the market. We'll probably see a little bit of that when we see a downturn, but we're going to maintain pretty even where we're at, if not climbing. So when you're buying a new house, on the buyer side, you really got two choices. You can do a new home, or you can buy an existing home. That slide goes next to that. Yeah. So there's advantages and disadvantages to both. When I talk about the fact that there's 2,900, about 3,000 homes for sale on the market right now, those are the existing homes. If homes are already built, someone's living in them, you go look at them and buy them. The other option is to do a new build. So you go into one of the builders, and they can be a custom builder, it can be a tract home builder, or you go into their community and buy it. The advantage on a new build is that you're not competing with other people. Coming in, you're getting a house, you get to pick out the things that you want to have in that house. And you're going to get exactly what it is that you want, because you're going to work with the builder to get that. They often have some incentives on loans as well. So there's good parts about that. The bad part is pretty much all new builds at this point are starting around 400,000. I mean, a lot of them are $500,000 and over, and it's not hard to get a decent 2,200 square foot, 3-bedroom home in a nice neighborhood that's going to be around $600,000. So our pricing has just gone through the roof over the last 3 to 4 years. It is really incredible what's going on. Advantages to existing homes is they tend to be a little cheaper. as far as, paying $400,000 to $600,000. The average number on Columbus is still right around 300,000. So you can get probably a better value for the money, although it's not a brand new house. But the disadvantage is you're competing with other people, and especially in a competitive area, you may be competing against people that are willing to come in and throw money around way above asking price. So it can be a little frustrating. That's what we're here for. We're helping to guide you through that process. If it's something that you absolutely love, we can guide you through how to get it. I often tell that to some of our clients is, I can tell you how to win a house in a competitive area, and I can give you good financial advice. You can't do both. But I can do one of those two things. I can tell you what. So it is tough buying some of this. Oh, we're back up? Good. The other thing on the new builds is there are wait times. They tend to be about 9 to 12 months. There are more inventory homes out there right now because of the interest rates and because of the pricing on the new builds. So there are some homes that are called inventory homes. It's ones they built to their own spec that you can go into and purchase just the way it is, and it may be ready now or it could be ready in just a few months. I'm almost afraid to touch it and see where it goes.
It's not.
I might be able
Sorry.
to switch it from here.
Maybe it's better if we don't break it again. And for those currently existing homes, this is where the market is in April. So everything in Central Ohio is up. There are some parts of the country where we've seen some variability in the housing market. Our home sales, as far as number, we completed 11,500 sales in April versus 10,200 basically last year in April. So we're 13% up from item count, 18% up from sale value because prices are rising, as well as we're selling more units. So the average price increase over the last year, April to April, is about 5%. That is not nearly as significant as it was back in 2020, 2022 area. But we're still seeing price increases, and I don't think we're going to see much different to that as we go along. What's next?
Next one's me.
Okay. Any questions on the difference between existing homes and builds?
Or anything in the chat at this time? Okay, all right, wonderful. So again, today we're going to go over a little bit about what does it involve and what are the steps. These are essentially the 7 steps. And not that, it is very much a seller's market, but we still help a lot of buyers get into contract. So sometimes it just takes a little bit of a different strategy to do so, but we will find a way to help you get a home if that is your goal. So the first thing that we'll do is connect you with a very good lender. Because ultimately, like Tim said, the interest rates are like 6 to 7%. But if you're renting, it's 100%. So getting a home ownership, and we're finding that the valuations will climb year over year. We were just fortunate enough to meet Mario this year and help him purchase a beautiful home, and he's already got equity in it. So every month he will be able to see like how it will increase over time. And right now, we saw a huge jump there for a couple of years, but still year over year, we're seeing like 5 to 6 to 7, depending on the location, even more growth in your home. So you will get equity in your home, so that if you do have to relocate, PCS, whatever it is, that selling your home, you'll still find that versus renting will be a good opportunity for you to use it as an investment vessel. So again, the first thing that we'll want to do is really get you in contact with a good lender. We work with several. All lenders are not alike, so we try to find ones that we know if we're submitting an offer for you on a Sunday night that we can get a hold of us. Hey, we need pre-approval at this amount. We need you to call this agent and tell them how great our buyer is. Those things do make a difference. We'll help you to get your home search set up through our portals that we have. We have a lot of great tools at our fingertips to be able to do that for you. Showings, this is just an overview of the steps. Tim will go a little bit more in depth on each of these. And when it comes time to submit that offer, we'll guide you through that process, get you in contract, to do those inspections, appraisals, all that is involved and entails in that, and then ultimately get you to that closing table. Next slide.
The lenders. It's very important to get that pre-approval. Again, in a lot of houses, we have a very short time frame to be able to get in, put in an offer, and see if we can get it. So finding a house and then going to the lender and trying to get an approval at that point, you may miss that particular house. If it was one you loved, you're just going to miss it. So getting that pre-approval beforehand is absolutely important. You can go to mortgage brokers or banks, and they both have advantages and disadvantages. Brokers tend to have a wider suite of programs that they can access, so they can get things from all across the country, and they may have something that's a little cheaper. You might be able to get a better interest rate, and they tend to be a little more customer focused. Brokers I like better personally, but there's advantages to banks. Banks tend to be a little bit more rigid. In a lot of cases, they're using their own money. That's what they're lending to you, is the deposits that they have within their bank. The advantage there is they can do some things with their own money that mortgage broker can't, because that mortgage broker has to craft that loan to the Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac guidelines, and a local bank can do things that are beyond those guidelines. So you can get better deals. One we've got down around Lancaster right now with People's National Bank is they've got a no down payment loan for everybody. So where we get the advantage of having VA loans, which you can use for your VA loan, it's absolutely always the best thing to do. That is a great program. But there are some other things out there like local banks or USDA where anybody can get a no down payment loan on a house, which saves you a lot of money up front for closing costs and just money out of pocket. The type of loan, basic types, you got those specialized bank loans. There's conventional loans, which is the normal Freddie Mae or Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac loan structure. Conventional loans typically don't have a lot of rules around them. They're pretty open. You can buy even distressed properties through conventional loans without much issue. VA loans, which is what I think probably a lot of us are going to be eligible for. There's some disadvantages on the appraisal side. When you go in, they're great as far as being a benefit to us. But you can run into some people that don't like to see VA loans, some sellers that don't like to see, or actually the sellers' agents, because they're going to be a little rougher on the appraisal as far as living conditions. So there's going to be more things put on, more requirements put on to the seller that they have to fix things up so that you can get the loan. So you can run into some issues there. We've been very successful. You want on any loan, of course, but the requirements are usually there. FHA is a requirement of about 3.5%. They also have a lot of issues on the appraisal that the seller may have to deal with. FHA almost those wins. Cash has all kind of good issues in that you don't even have to have an appraisal. But if you've got enough cash to throw around, that is a real advantage when you go to buy a house. But those are the basic loan types that you'll talk to your lender about when you go through and start talking. The pre-approval, they're going to give you a level at which you are pre-approved. So they may say you're approved for $350,000, $400,000, $500,000. You want to stay as far within that as possible, and you definitely want to check and make sure that your monthly payment at that level is one that you're going to be comfortable with. Lenders will approve you to areas where you may not be very comfortable with that payment. So you always want to take a look at that first. We want to help people buy houses, but we don't want people to get into it and be house poor. That's not fun at all. Plus, Tammy and I and the other agents on our team, our job is to make this process as easy as possible for you. We want to take out as many of the things that are tough on there. It's much like being with the government or the military. They're going to ask you for the same things over and over and over again. It's going to be frustrating, and it's best just to close your eyes and keep pushing paper at them until they go away. But the lender paperwork is going to be an area that once you get into certain parts of the letting process, there's going to be a lot of detail that you're going to need to provide to them. You're probably going to have to do it 2 or 3 times. So it's worth knowing coming in, so it reduces the frustration line. You got anything to add? Next, please. Showings. Once we get you pre-approved, we're going to set you up on a search. And it's going to be automated, so anything within the kind of house that you want to buy, the price range, land, 1, 2 acres, 1 acre, half a lot, whatever you want. We're gonna send you an email every time something like that comes in, so you can take a look at it. What you do at that point is you give us a call. Say, I wanna go see this house at this time, and we're gonna get that set up with the other agents that are involved in that. It's typically a different agent listing it than what we would be as your buyer's agent. Showings are terribly important. I don't know if you've been looking at houses. As real estate agents, we hire professional photographers. We are really good about misleading you with photos. So you're going to see the best possible picture of that house before you get in there. Once you get in, one of the reasons you want to go is you want to see what's actually there, and you want to see the parts that they didn't photograph. It's not that they did anything wrong, it's just they took the best possible picture of that. The other thing you want to do on the showing is see it, hear it, smell it. Because you can have leaking issues in the basement, you're going to smell that almost as soon as you walk into the house. You have mold, mildew, that kind of smell. As you walk around the house, how much does it create? How are the floors? You don't see that kind of thing in photos. Well, pictures are very important, and videos are really cool online. Until you get into the house, you really don't know. Probably the most important thing as you go through on the buying side and you're doing the showings is, once you start out thinking about what you want as a house, one thing, you start going through houses and you start seeing things that are pretty cool. So that's going to change as you go along. So you're going to probably get a different picture of what it is you really want to buy as we go see 2, 3, 5, 8, 10, however many houses you need to get you one life. So that's a real important part of that showing. And I think it's worth thinking about that as you go through, that your desires for what you want in a house are probably going to change based on what you see out there. And that's a normal part of the process. Next.
One thing I will add on what Tim mentioned about the lender. So it's always a good idea also to check with multiple lenders, find out, ask them certain things about them. What are your origination fees? What are your costs? So you kind of get an idea of what it is, because again, not all lenders are created equal. And sometimes our clients will tell us, well, we're not ready to put an offer on the house, so we don't want to apply because we don't want it to affect our credit. So we've talked with lenders, and they've told us that when you're applying for a loan and you're talking to a lender, it's not like you're buying a car and then you're going to buy some furniture. When you go in and you apply for a loan, they do a hard credit check the first time. And then after that, the credit agencies realize that you're shopping around. So it's not the same hard hit as you're going from ABC mortgage to 123 mortgage. So they know that you're looking again. So it's not going to be the same as buying a car and then buying a piece of furniture. So please keep that in mind. And then also, they do put an end date on your pre-approval letter. Usually it's maybe 3 months, 6 months, but the only reason they do that is because they want to make sure that nothing's changed. You didn't lose your job or you didn't obtain more debt. So that's why they put that date on there. So then they can just easily verify your information and extend it out. So if you're not quite ready to buy today, but you could, like Tim said, some of these houses go so quickly when we get in there and we see the house and we're like, I want to put an offer on it, Tammy, and it's Saturday, you don't have pre-approval yet, and it'll be gone Sunday. So that's why it's, yes.
When I bought my house 2 years ago, I went through a broker because they were more accessible as far as, like you said, calling on an evening or calling on a weekend. I got pre-approved for them and they were there to help me, when I purchased my house. But then my real estate agent told me I had like 30 days or something or other that I could shop around for another lender.
There is a time frame.
Okay. So then I shopped and I found a better rate with my bank and my broker couldn't match that. So switched.
Yeah. Perfect example. And that's interesting because a lot of times you'll find banks will keep them in-house so they don't like sell your loan to anyone else, so they keep it inside. So sometimes they have higher stipulations on what your debt to income can be, credit score, things like that. Whereas your broker, and Tim and I, we just bought a house a couple years ago ourselves. Perfect example. We bought a house, and now we just got notified like last month that they sold our loan to somebody else, but that's okay because nothing's changing on it. They've automatically set up the new automatic payment that we do with somebody else, and our interest rate didn't change, nothing changed. But brokers will do that because they move the money in and out so that they have more money to be able to sell homes or to do mortgages. And then again, sometimes they offer better fees. So fees are a very big important thing to ask again, ask your lender, what is your loan origination fee? So when it comes time to make an offer, price, first and foremost. So if we've been out showing you homes and we find the one, yes, we're ready, let's pull the trigger. So the first thing that I'll typically do is I'll reach out to the agent, find out what are we dealing with here? Do we have multiple offers? If it's been on the market for a minute, maybe nobody has, sometimes there's a diamond in the rough. It just got buried, it went out on a holiday weekend or something like that. So we've had good luck with that, but there's a different strategy that you use depending on if it's a multiple offer situation or we're the only buyer. So that's where price comes in. We could need to offer more. If there's no offers on the table, then let's go in with a lower price, asking for closing costs, asking for lots of things. Get it all wrapped up in a pretty bow for you. If there's multiple offers, then we have to use a totally different strategy. Conditions and contingencies. So in the offer, it is a legal document, but there are a couple of points where you can break that legally bound contract. That's what we mean by contingencies. And the two big ones, there's several that are in the offer, but the two big ones are the inspection period and the finance period. And I'll go into those a little bit more on bullet 4. So closing costs. You may have heard the acronym PITI, which stands for principal, interest, tax, and insurance. So when you buy a home, your house payment, it consists of all 4 of those things. So you will not pay your own taxes, and you will not pay your homeowner's insurance. Your mortgage provider will pay those for you. So again, every month when you make that house payment, part of it goes into the principal pot, the interest pot, tax pot, and the insurance. So then come time to close, you have to set up what's called an escrow account. And that's the majority of your closing costs. And it's based on the taxes, because if you buy a house in Dublin versus a house in Lancaster, you could be in a total different tax bracket. And your closing costs, that escrow account fund that is set up at closing, consists of sometimes around maybe 4 to 6 months worth of taxes, a year, 6 months to a year's worth of your homeowner's insurance, all goes into that pot of money. So that's a big part of your closing cost. Other fees that will be included in your closing cost are some of the fees that the title company uses to prepare your deed and all the documents involved with that. And then again, that loan origination fee that your lender has, that gets rolled into your closing costs. So that's where it's very important to know what are you looking at there. Because that can easily be $5,000 to $7,000 or more, depending on, again, the tax bracket is the big one. Sometimes we can ask sellers to pay part of that, all of that. But again, for that multiple offer situation, we're streamlining things, and we may not be able to cover any of that. So I always want my clients to kind of have a good overview of what are we looking at, how much money do we need from the get-go. Inspections and requests to remedy. So that first contingency that I mentioned, it's usually like the first 7 to 10 days of when we're in contract. So we've agreed on all terms at this point, we're in contract. Now, the timelines start. We have that inspection done. Inspections are incredibly important. You want to know what's going on. We can tour the house, but we're not experts. We may not know if there's structural issues, things like that. So that's where it's good to have a home inspector come in. Check the house top to bottom. Make sure you know what you're getting into. If you're not happy, we simply submit a termination request and a copy of that home inspection report, and you are legally out of your contract.
It will cost $300 to $400.
Sometimes more.
Absolutely worth it.
I say normally around $500 for a home inspection. That's for a general home inspection. There's a misconception. Many of my clients think that the VA requires that. They do not. The only inspections that the VA requires if you're getting a VA loan are a termite inspection on all homes. And if you're buying a home that's out in the country and has well water, you have to get the water test. Those are the 2 inspections that the VA requires. If you're getting the USDA, like I mentioned, as another type of loan, there could be a septic that's required. But other than that, home inspection is optional. It's a cost you incur. Again, it could run you around $400 to $500. If you add on, and that's for the general inspection. If you start adding on radon, maybe a septic scope, things like that, then it could go up in cost. But for your general knowledge, I would plan on about $500. Some clients will waive a home inspection. Again, we don't recommend that because this is a very big, expensive purchase. We want to make sure you're going in it with your eyes wide open. Request a remedy. What that means is once you have that inspection, you can say, I would like the seller to make a certain amount of repairs. So then we submit what's called a request to remedy. We tell the agent, the seller's agent, that yes, we still want to move forward with purchasing your home. However, we would like you to make the following repairs. This is negotiable. So this is one of those hurdles that I said we've got to initially get over because the contract could fall through here. So if we can't come to terms on what we're asking the seller to fix and what they agreed to fix, then we can part ways. Or you could have terminated the results. Once we agree on all of that, then we are over that first big hurdle, which again is the inspection hurdle. Home warranty, that's something that's in the contract that we can ask the seller to basically cover like the first year. If you have issues with your mechanicals or your appliances, the home warranty company will come out and check it, and then they will. This is something for the first year in the contract. It's negotiable again, or we could opt not to put it in. And then you could simply buy one on your own if you would like. You could have your home inspection done, and they say, hey, my hot water tank is probably on its last leg, or my furnace. And we didn't ask the seller to pay for one because we were trying to be very competitive with our offer. You could certainly buy one yourself and put it on your home if you'd like.
Yeah, I know when I bought 2 years ago, a lot of sellers, since it was still a seller's market, were not allowing inspections, or if they did, they said you can't have remedy. I mean, it was very much a seller's market, and they were not taking bargaining or doing anything. Are you still seeing that a lot, or is that kind of relaxed a little bit?
I would say it's relaxed a little bit.
Okay.
And it's up to a seller. A seller can, accept any offer that he or she wants. But if we're, so if we're competing with another offer and this one matches this one, except this one says, I'm buying your house as is, they're still saying I'm doing a home inspection, but it's just for peace of mind to make sure that I'm okay with moving forward. But we're not going to ask you to fix it.
Right.
They may accept that over the other.
Yeah.
Again, like I said, sometimes
That's what I had to do.
sometimes buyers are confident and maybe they've had people with them that's contractor or friend or parent or whatever it is that says this house is good, and then they say we want to waive inspection, and we're very we make sure we're like, are you sure? Because that takes away that contingency of being able to cancel the contract. But when a seller sees that, it's almost like playing a game of checkers and you jump right over that into the next one. Then the seller loves that. So like, okay, one, they're not going to nickel and dime you to death. Two, they're not going to potentially cancel because of something that they find. I'm sorry, you got a question?
Yeah, so if a buyer had multiple offers, are they always gonna go for the highest one, or can they go for the first one?
Sometimes it's all about terms. So again, like she mentioned, if we have an offer over here that's really high, that they're doing a home inspection and they're going to ask for remedies, and then we have an offer over here that may not be as high, but they say, we're good. We're not going to ask you to fix anything. Sometimes a seller will look at that as, I'm just going to go with this offer because I know he's not going to ask me to fix anything, whereas this one could come in after the home inspection and ask for thousands and thousands of dollars in repairs. So, or this one over here may say, I'm going to close quicker. I'll let you stay in the house for longer. Whereas this one says, I want keys at closing. And, these people may be, in a situation where they need a little extra time in the house. So sometimes time is money and just the conditions are more favorable.
And part of what we're going to do when we're helping you buy a house is when you say this is the house you really want, we're going to talk to the other agent to find out what's important to that seller, so that we know what kind of competitive items that we can put in there and say, oh, you guys want to be able to save here for an extra month. That's something that if you're comfortable doing that, then we can put that in, and that may differentiate you from another buyer that's out there that may be a little higher. Can you also get into appraisal gap? What we saw over the last 2 years, and hopefully won't see again, is some people would bid way high, but they wouldn't put anything to cover that potential appraisal gap that could occur between the appraisal comes in at when they bid. So their offer may be high, but it may be so high that it's crazy. No appraiser's ever going to do that, and they're not promising to make up the difference between somebody with a more reasonable offer than offer for appraisal gap. Maybe explain what it is. That would be a preferable offer at that stage. You're guaranteed more than that. So there are lots of cases where highest doesn't always work.
Because like Tim exactly said, it's not going to appraise. So what we'll do as buyer's agents is we'll look at the house and we'll look at comparable sales to try to figure out where did they get this price. There's nothing that has sold within the last 6 months that comes even close to this. And because sometimes sellers will say, I want to sell my house at this, when it may not appraise, like you said, there's no opportunity for that. So sometimes I'll reach out to the agents and say, can I see your comps, so I'll know what they use to price it. But we do our own homework because we want to find out what it is. Because last thing you want to do is be in contract and then the house not appraised. The appraisal gap, what Tim mentioned, is that would go in your initial offer. And it's a way to be competitive. It's kind of like a little insurance policy for the sellers, because we're telling them, say a house is listed for $200,000 and we're offering $210,000, and we put in our offer that we will pay, maybe we can't afford the full $10,000, but we say we'll give you $5,000 above what it's appraised at. Above list price if it doesn't appraise at that. So if we're offering $210,000 and we say we'll give you $5,000 in coverage, if it appraises at $210,000, you don't have to bring the extra $5,000 to the table. But if it were to appraise at $205,000, then we offer $210,000, we would be on the hook for that $5,000. So again, it's an insurance policy for the seller. They see that and they're like, oh, so I'm guaranteed if my house doesn't appraise that I'll still get some extra money at the end. Again, if it does appraise, and we've seen some homes that appraise it when we've done gap money, it wasn't required. So again, it's kind of an insurance policy, but it's a way to really make your offer stand
So if it was appraised at 200, you would owe 205?
Yes,
Correct.
exactly.
Yep.
But the seller would have to agree to that, because then we're saying,
Right.
we're not gonna be able to give you $210,000, but we'll give you that 5 over.
I had to put an appraisal gap in mind, but luckily it appraised at the price they offered, so I
Yes.
was like, phew.
Yes, exactly. It's a little nerve wracking at the beginning, because you're like, oh, that's an extra $5,000. But then like you probably won your offer because of that offer.
Yeah.
Possession time, I touched on that a little bit. So once you close, sometimes if you're in a position where you're like, I can let them stay in the house a little longer. Maybe they're doing a new build and it's not quite ready, so that they don't have to stay in an apartment or whatever for a short time. Sometimes that is very valuable. You can't go more than 60 days, because when you're living in a home, you have to sign something at closing that says you will take ownership or you will take possession within 60 days. And that would be an extreme. I normally don't see that, but I have seen people offer 30 days. Anything above that, I would advise that you do some sort of a rent back situation. Because when you close, the day you close, your homeowner's insurance kicks in on that house. So they would essentially be almost considered like a tenant. So you would cover the entire house, but not their personal possessions, heaven forbid, in their house.
Did you know that when setting up your offer? Or
Yes, that's part of the offer as well, that you would put in there, that you will give them X amount of time post-possession. And that's why I say I always reach out to the agent before we even submit an offer, and I say, what's important to your seller? I want to find those nuggets out, because sometimes they're not listed there, that it's not in black and white, so it's important to dig, find out, okay, do you need that instant possession? Did you really want to keep the washer and dryer and things like that? So just anything we can do to sweeten your offer and make it stand out. Again, I reach out to my lenders and ask them to make a personal phone call so that they know, because a lot of times, sellers and their agents, when they're reviewing offers, if you say, or if that agent says, hey, Tammy called me, she's going to be good to work with, you want to have that good rapport from the get-go. So that is so important, because otherwise, you're competing with maybe 5 or 10 offers, so you want to do whatever you can to make your offer stand out. So that's what we do for our clients. We go back, we make those calls, we make sure that we're trying to keep that offer up as much as we can. Sometimes those things will cost you money. You don't have to do as much gap, things like that. Anything we can do to make it stand out. Earnest money is another thing that we can do to make it stand out. Earnest money is essentially you show to the seller you got a little bit of skin in the game. So you're putting $1,000 in earnest money, and it actually goes into our brokerage account. So you say during the offer process that I will give you, Mr. Seller, I'm putting up $1,000 of earnest money. Whereas this offer may not be offering earnest money, so it shows that you do have money in the bank. And when you put that up, it's showing that it essentially just states there. It doesn't go to the seller. It will apply towards your closing cost at the end of closing. If for some reason we got all the way down to the finish line and you said, I don't want to buy this house, changed my mind, then the seller would have to sign what's called a mutual release to give you your money back. But they may be upset with you. So they may say, I'm not signing that form. So if that happens, and I have had it happen one time with a member on our team, where he had the seller was mad because the buyer didn't disclose to them that they had a house to sell. So they got all the way down to it, and then they couldn't close. So he's like, I'm not signing that. I don't want him to get his money back type thing. So the money actually sits in our brokerage's account for a certain period of time. I think it's like 26 weeks or something, and then no longer.
2 years. It can be tied up for 2 years.
Okay.
Sorry.
So, and then it gets released to the buyer. So it does eventually come back to you, but that's just one potential hit that we could have. If you cancel because of inspection or because of appraisal, it already is built into the contract that your money will come back to you.
As a seller, I got burnt by that like 3 times.
Really?
And kind of answer her question, I ended up going to the third highest after the first 2 dropped out because they were playing games. They offered me $15,000 over listing, and I accept their offer. They had inspection. They put down earnest cash, but they had inspection, and if they found one little thing in their inspection they wanted fixed, they can back out of the contract.
Right.
Yeah.
So it was such a hot market. That's the only way they could secure the house because they knew if they didn't put an offer in on Saturday, it was going to be gone on Monday. So they made an offer. But then on Tuesday, they had their inspector come in and buy something. So they backed out. They get their earnest cash back. Because there's no reason really to hold it because they're going to get it back anyway.
And that's, I don't like earnest money personally, and I do more buyer stuff, she does more the listing and seller stuff. Because they watered down earnest money, it's a financial promise the buyer's going to go through with you. That's what the earnest money is for. What's happened since then is the non-refundable deposit. So as a seller, if somebody were to offer me earnest money, I would say, no, I want that as a non-refundable deposit.
Yep, it means more. Definitely.
Because that doesn't have all these other rules around it, and if they back out like that, and that's what they're doing it for. They're doing it to make sure the seller feels comfortable about the sales going through. So yeah, sorry you had that lesson.
Yeah, I did this, the second quote or second offer, same exact thing. Their inspection, they scheduled it a week later. Basically, it kept me from entertaining any other offers.
Yep.
Why a family member came and did the inspection. The inspector, who was our family, found something with the house, something real small, and they backed out and closed it.
And they
So-
tried to put some things in place now where inspectors have to be certified and licensed in order to be able to cancel based off of that because it is very.
To avoid that.
Yeah, because they say that the seller is dating, the buyer is married. Because once you get an offer as a buyer, you're not allowed to entertain any other offers until that offer falls through or is legally done. But as a buyer, you're just dating. You can go put in offers on 5 different houses at once, but you can back out of them because you find something on your inspection you don't like.
Well, based off their new ruling, though, they should have to pay for 5 inspections doing that. So I think that's, and you're exactly right, because they're trying to, sometimes somebody will submit an offer and then they won and then they get cool.
Yep. So then, like, for the next time, I had my next available on my list, so 1 and 2 dropped out, playing that whole game. So then I had 3, 4, and 5, I went with 5, because they were more sound, and it was as is. And they did inspection, but there was no remedy. There was no remedy.
Yeah. And we've had some of our clients, actually the home that Tim just mentioned early in our, when we started, that was listed for $395 and then we went in contract for $455. When they submitted that offer, I had to sell them on that. When they submitted that offer to us, we countered with a non-refundable deposit. We said, okay, because exactly what you said, we were taking the house off the market, but we wanted them to really have some skin in the game. So we said, we want a $5,000 non-refundable, and you wrote the check, gave it to my seller, so my seller cashed it. And we're closing next week. But had we not closed, my seller would have at least got that $5,000.
Another point based off of one of the things you said too, as a buyer's agent, if a buyer wants to put in multiple offers at the same time, I'm going to severely try to dissuade them from doing that. Like that is a really bad idea. You get yourself in a bad situation like that as a buyer. I'll do it. You make me, but I would recommend not putting in multiple offers to a buyer. Put in one offer, see if you did that or not. you can get yourself in contract 2 or 3 different times. And now you're paying money just to get out of that, either through an inspection or, some other means you might end up having other troubles because you're in a contract. This is a legal contract
Yes.
you're getting into. So I try to advise folks that way. Just not a good technique as far as I'm concerned, but people do it.
And some lenders won't do that.
Yeah.
The ones that we work with, that's what they're saying, like, no, one offer. And we'll try to use the answer as fast as we can before we move to the next.
Next slide, please.
Other way.
Yeah, go around.
Yeah. All right, so you put it in that offer, they accept it, you're now in contract. One of the first things is the first 2 things you're gonna do is you're gonna get back to the lender on the formal loan application, fill in all the other documents and get that process started. The sooner we can start that, the better. Typically takes VA about 30, you have 40 days to go through it. Others can be anywhere from 30, USDA tends to be 45 to 50. We're gonna get you scheduled with an inspector. We'll give you 3 inspectors to talk to. If you are prior military, we do have folks that give military a break, so we can get that done a little cheaper, and that's the difference between the prices we were talking about. We'll get the inspection in. That's gonna be a 7 to 10 day period where you can do the inspection, get the results back from that. If you're gonna request remedies, put in a letter and say, hey, we'd like to have you fix these things before we move forward. The seller then has a choice. They can say, nope, not gonna do it. They can say, yeah, I'll do part of it, or they can just say, here's $1,000, please go away. Just keep moving through the process where they're gonna fix things. They're gonna fix some, not all of it. At that point, depending on what that answer is, you can move forward with the process, or you can say, I'm done, which is what you were just talking about on inspection. You have your out at that point. Once the inspection is done, and only after the inspection is done and you're comfortable with it, should you order your appraisal. Because you're gonna be out of pocket for that appraisal as well, and I think those are running 6 and 7 now.
About $650 for an appraisal.
The appraisal is going to go out and it's going to come back 3 different ways. It's either to value, so everything's fine, no conditions apply, your loan's going to go through for the amount that you put the offer in. To value with conditions, which means they found something there in the house and they're saying, we'll give you the loan for that amount of money, but only if the seller goes through and the buyer, but usually the seller. Only if the seller goes through and repaints this area that's got peeling paint, or puts on these handrails, or these things that have to have a safety concern. They're going to have conditions that have to be met before you get the loan. The other and more delicate area is if it comes in undervalued. So that's where the appraisal gap kind of stuff comes in. So if it appraises for less than what you offered it, something's got to happen. Either the seller is going to have to drop their price to the loan, or you're going to have to make up the difference between the appraised value and your offer value. That means you're going to have to bring that money to the table. So an appraisal gap is kind of like pre-negotiating that and saying, I will do that at some stage. But if it comes in under value, then something's going to have to give before that process, before the sale moves forward. Does that make sense? Okay. Can you explain a little more?
No.
Okay. You've heard me talk too much already. Tidewater is something that's got to do with VA, and Tidewater means they're going to come back and they're going to let you know the VA appraiser is going to say, this is coming in under, you can submit information to us to try to change our mind. I've done that several times. I know you've probably done it before too, and yet to have the VA appraiser stand up and go, you know what, I was wrong, you're right. They don't change their mind, but they give you the chance to. And it's always frustrating. So you end up having to renegotiate the price. Once we get the appraisal, yes, sir.
Do you have any, do you see the VA appraisals coming in lower or higher, or?
I see them coming in equal to any other
Just
appraisal.
about,
Yeah.
Okay.
And after that, it goes down to the appraiser that does it themselves. So you do get differences between appraisers and what they'll pick out, what they have. Okay. But no, I've typically not seen them. Once you get through appraisal, you're going to get back to the lender. You're going to go through the final underwriting process. That will then result in you guys going back and closing more paperwork, and eventually there'll be a clear to close issue. And when we get the clear to close, that's when we can go into closing and get everything wrapped up, and you guys can possession the house. So that's basically the process. It typically takes between 30 and 45 days once you go into contract. Questions on that? Anything on Zoom? Or?
Nothing on Zoom so far.
Okay.
Okay.
Next.
Oh, I'm sorry, there is one. In the local market, Columbus, Reynoldsburg, Pickerington, what is the average time on the market for houses for sale?
It varies, and I've seen it, it's almost like it's starting to be a little bit longer, but still, the key is always if the house is priced right, if it shows right, and if it's in the areas that you're speaking of, those are all hot areas. You could see a house only last a couple of days. So average, I would say you're probably still looking at maybe 10 or under. If it's more than that, it's usually indicative that it's overpriced.
Or some other problem with it.
Mhm.
Thank you. Next slide.
Next slide.
Yes, please.
So that's kind of the overview on the buying side. We will touch on the selling side a little bit, and kind of some of them go hand in hand. If you are currently selling your home, this is what you get with buyers. And if you're buying your home, but if you think you might be selling a few, it's good to have knowledge on both of those. So any other questions before we jump to the listing side real quick?
So with the insurance, you're talking about one of those into the cost in terms of the mortgage insurance.
Homeowners insurance, yes.
Okay.
And that is one area that you can shop around. I always say maybe check with who you have your car, so you can kind of do a bundle, but that is definitely an area where you can save some money. When you first go into contract, your lender's required to send you out a loan disclosure, and they're always way high. Some lenders, if they're out of state, they don't know how to do taxes, they don't know how, there's a thing in the contract that's called title insurance, that by our Columbus Board of Realtors contract, that is paid by the seller. So when you sign that initial closing disclosure, your closing costs are gonna say that they're way high here because they're also throwing in just a number for homeowners insurance. Again, you can shop around for that. So once we're in contract, then the title company starts talking to your lender. The two of them start bouncing their numbers back and forth, and they say, okay, this is how we're paying our title insurance. In Ohio, our taxes are what's called paid in arrears. So this year we're paying for last year. So when you buy a house, if you're the buyer, if we close on 1 July, you're gonna get a credit for, if the second half of the taxes have not been paid yet, because that's due like right around July, then you'll get a credit for 1 July through 31 December of last year. And then you'll get a credit for 1 Jan through 1 July of this year. So that will all come to you as a credit from the seller because next year you'll get the tax bill or your mortgage provider will. So they're going to be paying that out of that. So that will bring your closing costs down as well as you get closer to the closing date for all.
We're in agreement.
Oh, I'm sorry.
The 20% down deposit insurance,
Oh, PMI.
yeah.
It's private mortgage insurance.
Is there any flexibility between the different amounts on that threshold?
It depends. So if you are doing a VA loan, then you don't pay PMI. That's why, like Tim said, the VA loan is a really good loan for you. Not only do you not have PMI, it's zero money down. And if you're a veteran with a disability rating of 10% or higher, then you are exempt from what's called a VA funding fee. And a VA funding fee is kind of like the VA's way of doing private mortgage insurance. So instead of every month, if you have a conventional loan or an FHA loan, you do have to pay this separate insurance called PMI or MIP. It stands for the same thing. FHA calls it one thing, conventional calls it another. It's just an insurance, a little extra insurance that goes on top of that house payment until you get 20% equity in your home. If you're a conventional buyer and you're using a conventional loan, once you hit that 20% mark, the PMI goes away. If you're an FHA buyer, if that's the type of loan you're getting, it doesn't automatically go away. It used to, but it no longer does. So you have to reach out to your lender and essentially get your home reevaluated. A lot of times people can do that through refinancing because your value goes up. So say you had it for 5 years and then you're looking at maybe you have to refi, it could be a very good opportunity because even though you have to pay for that refinance cost, if your home is now, you've got that 20% equity, you can get rid of that PMI. But again, with the veterans, a VA loan, no PMI, and no funding fee if you have 10% or higher.
The only other place I've seen other than VA loans is some of the local banks can waive the PMI. But if they're doing a loan that's going to conform to Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, that PMI is going to be in there. So USDA, FHA.
Any other questions? Those are all good questions.
I had a couple of questions about VA loans. I
Mhm.
can really talk to you go through this part.
Okay. Not sure. And actually, we're sending around a sign-in sheet, or you're welcome to come up here afterwards. We've got some goodies for you guys. And then you can scan this, and we would be happy to like send you the additional. I've got a ton of information on the VA home. But a lot of my clients are military or veterans, but I'd be happy to talk to you one-on-one, or because I'm not sure if everyone's a veteran and may or not be doing it, but
I had a VA loan on my first house.
Mhm.
But like you said, once I got enough equity in it, I refinanced for a lower rate, so I was able to go with a conventional.
Mhm.
I didn't have to go VA. So on the property I have now, I bought land and I built on it, so I didn't get used to VA loan. So I don't currently have a VA loan, I have a conventional loan.
Mhm.
But I would like to buy another house.
Mhm.
But from what I understand, I can't really buy another house in the area using a VA loan.
That is not correct.
Okay,
And-
so that's all I need to talk to you about.
Yes,
Because
yes,
I've done some research, because I would like to buy a house
yeah.
and rent it to my doctor.
Oh, you do have, it has to be
Yeah, you
primary
have to
residence.
Okay. And who's checking?
You
That's
do
kind of
sign something in close.
right. Maybe for 12 months I lived there. But then after 12 months, I'm allowed to.
Our son did that. He bought a home VA loan, and then he ended up buying a different home. So he was able to use his VA benefits, even though this home's still sitting here. He lived in it for like 2 years, 2.5 years. It still is sitting there with a 2.5% interest loan on it. He's renting it, and now he bought another home using his VA loan.
And like, I don't have a VA loan now, so it will only be one VA loan, but it's the second house, so I will still have.
Yes, but
Inside there.
but it does have to be your primary residence. But you can definitely use it back to back. I think we're running short on time.
Yeah, I'll get with you.
Okay. Okay.